Hi, this is Heather, and welcome to another episode of Cast. In this episode, I speak to Rob Jameson about the gift economy. We met at an offers and needs market a few months ago, and so we discuss what relationship the gift economy has with the offers and needs market as an alternative to capitalism or as a way to cope with capitalism and the side effects that we all feel. And so we discuss how Rob spent a year solely living under the gift economy, through the gift economy. And I also talk about how I use the gift economy in much of my work and how that is and how that's possible and ideas for how you might do the same. So I hope you enjoy this new episode of Cast. Hi, welcome to Cast. This is Heather, and I'm really pleased to be discussing the gift economy today with Rob. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Heather. Thank you for having me. My name is Rob Jameson. I would describe myself as an inventor and an entrepreneur, but my work tends to be in community spaces and underserved spaces. So, yeah, I like to blend what I do across art and science and technology, but all with the intention of helping communities get stronger.
Nice, lovely. Sounds like there's loads we could talk about in lots of other areas, but we are going to look at the gift economy. And I met you through an offers and needs market, which is something that the Post Growth Institute puts on, which is a way to, I don't know, what would you say? How would you frame the offers and needs market in terms of the gift economy?
Yeah, the some of the hardest parts with living on the gift economy, as I'm sure we'll go into, is the actual articulation of what we need in a way that people can hear, and the ability to give in a way that's not extractive, not depleting. And so the offers and needs market is essentially a methodology, and obviously it's a practice group for practicing just that. In the one that we were in when we met, it was my first time, and we were breaking out into different circles, and we took turns sharing what we need, sharing resources that we have, and then people going deeper with asking questions and expressing what's alive in them as they hear those things. And it had a kind of a dual benefit of obviously matching people up to exchange needs and offers, but also creating this sense of kinship and like, connection to others.
And so, how would you compare that to your understanding of the gift economy?
Yeah. Well, gift economy for me is very much on the what resources do I have that I can give without expectation. The offers and needs market wasn't explicitly saying people have to receive, but there was this emphasis on it being, you have someone on the supply side and someone on the demand side. When I was researching and living in a gift economy state of mind, because I lived entirely on gifting for a year, when I was doing that, I was almost exclusively focusing on what I can give. And people were open to ask me what my needs were, but that was not my intention with any encounter.
Yeah, so with the offers and needs market, we are encouraged to say what our price would be, or if we're doing it for free, or if we're doing it for exchange. So yeah, it's not quite just offering it without any expectation, right? So, yeah, I want to hear more about your um living this for a year. But before that, or maybe it is related to how you did it for a year. How did you make it clear that you have needs?
For me, it was a little baked into the circumstance because at the time I was doing it, I had a bad leg injury and I was in a wheelchair. And so I was unable to meet people. People before they knew that I was in a wheelchair were like, let's meet at a coffee shop and or let's like, et cetera, et cetera. And not only could I not do that, but I often couldn't even make it down the stairs to let them in the door. So they would let themselves in and I was on the second floor. So, maybe that's not a duplicative answer, but as the context was set through that, people understood that I was in a fairly dependent state, um, even though I was focusing on, understanding how I could help them. And it would come out organically. There would be like, layers of getting to know me, but when I would have empathy with people and really get into their world and what they need, pretty organically, they would always say, "And how could I help you?" And yeah, there became an art form to how I would manage those types of questions, which we can get into. But yeah, it was just a natural give and take from me focusing on what I can give.
Yes, so I say, as people know who may be listening to this, that I say that I work on a gift economy basis. And by that, I mean, I say, like for coaching, I'll say, um, I I want to support you in any way I can. Feel free to book. You don't have to pay anything. I don't want that to be a barrier for anyone. And if you do have some kind of ability and willingness to offer something, then I'm happy to accept that, but there's no obligation. Would you consider that gift economy?
It depends on, I guess, what definition you're adhering to. So, yes, I would definitely call that gift economy. That is outside of the typical capitalist way of putting a barrier to exchanging unless someone has money to give back. So I would definitely say there's an element there. For me specifically, in my own lived experience, I didn't want to even have that level of back and forth because I was essentially looking to absolve someone from feeling any sense of guilt with receiving and any sense of um, not taking because of the circumstance that they were in. Basically, shame was coming up for people. And um, I wanted it to feel like this is a kind of benevolent act and one that was obviously they knew who I was, but my goal was not to make an impression as an individual. My goal was almost to recede in the background so that their dream, their whatever could advance. And so even sharing needs to me was detracting from what my focus was, which was them. And it was helping them, achieve something new.
Yes. And maybe because I'm thinking in the way that I do it, I don't know how else they would know that I do welcome any kind of gift without saying it. And also because it's not like this is virtual. And it's not like the situation you were describing for yourself, where people saw your circumstances and, felt moved to ask what you needed. So I'm not sure how that would work when there isn't that space. And I'll say that many, many people take me up on doing it for free, So there seems to be hopefully some way that I'm indicating that it's perfectly fine not to offer anything at all, and that this this is something I really want to do for them. And it's just, if you happen to want to, you're welcome to contribute something.
So for me, there's another piece of it that actually helped with contribution coming back. And this might be about where I haven't explained the story of how I got into this yet. But one thing I learned was when I started to gift openly, there were a lot of people that would take and take and take. And I knew that what I was doing was ultimately not going to create results. It's kind of like the poor me mentality that no matter what they're given, they're always going to feel like a victim of something. And so at the outset, I learned how to listen to my intuition, like my second chakra belly, for when I'd be talking with someone to see just where they were in life. And my focus was not on helping people that were down and out in as much as finding the people that were really, I don't want to say high achievers, but really high integrity individuals that my skills could aid. Um, and in the process of doing that, if people kind of got past that first filter, but I felt like maybe didn't have good intentions, over time I would just let those collaborations go. And so it wasn't for me about just saying, person on the street has come up to me, now let me give endlessly. And further, what started to happen, and this was one of the key realizations I had, was word of mouth would start to spread, and those high integrity individuals were telling their friends, you have to meet Rob because he can help you. He does everything for free. And I realized like I wouldn't have enough hours in the day to help people. So I went to the people I was already helping and I said, hey, I'm really stoked that you're stoked. And thank you for telling what I'm doing to others. My request is that you just explain what I'm doing to the people you feel have the highest integrity, that actually have the ability to create the change that they're seeking. And what happened was it went from, let's say everyone was telling 20 people out first to instead the people I was helping would just tell the two or three most down to earth, integrous, um, high achieving individuals from their networks. And so without realizing it, what I was doing was I was kind of creating this hyper high quality network through referrals where the people I was helping were kind of gatekeeping and like, no, no, you individual who is already, has their funds figured out in life and has their business going, you should talk to Rob. And so they were acting as a screening filter for bringing in more and more of the people that would have means to help me. So inadvertently, higher net worth individuals ended up getting gifts, and then they were very generous because they could have paid from the beginning, and I only would have gotten access to them had I kind of gone through the heart path of gifting to the people that I had first reached out to, or first reached out to me.
That's interesting because that is almost an exchange economy because you have expectation that they're going to make big change.
Correct. I would look for what their life's mission was, what their work was. My at that time, the work I was doing was a lot on, I guess, business streamlining. I was a filmmaker, so I was helping with film directing, but I would help organizations refine their vision statement, their mission statement, make their websites and things like that. So it's very natural to that work to then say, are you in this work? What are your real reasons? What do you hope to get out of it? It wasn't focusing on was their business profitable, but it would more say, you know, what's your why? Are you in touch with why you're in as a human on Earth at this time, and what's driving you? And when that would resonate in terms of the values, but also that the person is a for real manifesting individual, they're not, stuck in certain types of karmic uh, issues that I think will block them manifesting. Yeah, that did often lend to a kind of a more even exchange without me even seeking that out explicitly.
And I won't like complain about that because the way that I'm doing it and the way that you did it, they're both so far outside capitalist exchange, aren't they? And people can find that so uncomfortable. Um, because, and like the offers and needs market talks about, I think, abundance and, like this contradiction to scarcity, that when you go into a space with strangers and you say, what do you have to offer? It challenges people's ideas of that they do have things to offer because some people feel like, oh, I don't know what I could offer. So it helps people build that muscle of noticing, what you have. And then, as you mentioned, being able to say what needs are is also very difficult for people, some people to articulate their needs and be willing to say it. And what I came out of with the offers and needs market my first time, which was maybe a year ago or something, was wow, suddenly there's all this abundance everywhere. People have so much to offer each other.
Yeah.
And we have no idea that it made me look at my neighbors differently, not in terms of like an exploitative way, but just everyone's got so much to offer the world, and we don't really know each other. We don't know what there is. And so many times I would offer, think of three things I could offer, right? Which is kind of the what you do in an offers and needs market. And then people would mention their needs and you put them in a spreadsheet and you see this big list of needs. And there will always be something in there that I'm like, oh, I could meet that need. And I never even thought of it as something that I could offer someone. So it takes away that capitalist idea of, a very narrow view of what our labor is worth and what we have to offer and all of that. And it just opens up the world for, this, like I say, abundance. So I don't know if you want to speak to that kind of shattering of the myth that capitalism creates around what we have and what we can ask for.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, the whole podcast we could talk about that. Very beautifully said, by the way. Um, yeah, that is the shift. And for me, when I started this journey for the 1 year on gifting, I had very little money. I had, I think, under $5 in my bank account, and I was doing it because I was basically broken financially by the whole capitalist system of naming prices for things and then people negotiating, and me just feeling more and more dismal about humanity and the kind of capitalist systems. And once I made the shift and I started to be the one that was qualifying them and the one that was saying it, no, really, it is free. Just like you say, there's kind of like these layers of indoctrination that we all have that would come up for people. And sometimes they would ask me multiple times, they wouldn't understand, but they always thought that there would be a catch, that how could I just be doing this for free? How I must have a huge trust fund account and all these things. But once that pressure point releases, there's a huge flow back and forth that can happen between people of ways that were actually relevant to each other. And we have that type of dynamic with some of our friends, but how do we get to that level of trust with strangers? Well, they have to really assume that your intentions are good, that they can feel comfortable saying this is their circumstance in life, and they got divorced and their car got in an accident, and whatever it is. And before we know it, we're just throwing needs at it out. And if you have the ability to discern how many things that are said are actually hidden resources or hidden needs, meaning like there was some philosopher, and I or psychologist, I'm not even sure, but they said something like everything is a request for request to be heard or to have a need met or to express something that you want people to acknowledge or something like that. And as soon as I started to lean into that, I realized like there are needs that people are expressing often subconsciously all the time, all around us. And when we have the space to slow down, hear that, and then try and re-articulate it back and pause and put a little container on it and be, I heard you just said this. Is this a need that you have? And there's trust there. The relevancy factor of why people are in our lives just goes up so much, and it becomes such a beautiful like support system that you can develop.
Yeah, lovely. So tell us how you found yourself in that space of deciding to, like you said that your circumstances of being in a wheelchair and having very little money, but I would say most people in those circumstances wouldn't even know that something like the gift economy was an option for how to live in the world. So how did you come about that?
Well, I at that point actually had made a web platform that is kind of similar to what the needs and offers market does. It was more local in the Northeast, in the Hudson Valley, and we had people that were exchanging on it. So I had already been thinking about ways that we can offer things and give things, etc. But to kind of shift from it being a hobby thing to my only means of exchange happened really because I saw no other option. And so the story was I had a bad snowboarding incident. And then for a year, I had done all types of medical tests to figure out why my legs weren't getting better. And there, not only were they not healing, but it kind of spread and I was having issues with other joints, etc. And I had no other option because as my bank account was dwindling, um, my ability to work as a cinematographer went out the window because you need to carry heavy gear and commute to places for that. And I basically wasn't even trying to make money when I went onto it to survive. I was just thinking, I at least don't want to feel depressed at the state of humanity. So let me just focus on being useful. But as soon as I started to reply to people on Craigslist and just say, how can I help you? Like one person was, they were like a used car dealer and they definitely seemed questionable. And I started to say, huh, if I had, a week left to live, for example, hypothetically, is this the type of circumstance that I would want to use my energy to help? And I just got sharper and sharper at saying, my energy is sacred. I'm not going to name a price on it. And basically, my kind of my the deciding factor at that point was I was going to lose my apartment and I was going to move back to live at my parents' house. So I was like, well, if I only have 2 more weeks in this apartment, let me just focus on whatever good I can do. That there's a poem in my bathroom I had growing up. My mom had crocheted, which said, um, I basically, oh, I wish I remembered it, but it was saying, I'll go this way but once, therefore any good I can do or any kindness I can show, let me do it now, for I won't pass this way again. And so I always think about that, like our time here is limited, and at that point I had a very big limit because I wasn't even sure about food money. And I was just like, I need to find the most sacred way that I can use my energy, which includes qualifying the people that I'm going to give it to. And it felt so good after that because this one person I had found, he plays an interesting role later in my life, but he was the director of education at an organization called the Center for Creative Education. And he was one of those ones that I had to tell him like 4 times, no, really, it is free. And he obviously had more needs than what he had put on Craigslist. So as soon as he saw, oh, I don't have to get department approval, I could just like, achieve all these things within this righteous organization, he immediately started to be a bridge to other high integrity individuals. And I was just like, oh, this actually feels really good. And I sense that there's life force that will return I don't know if I'll be able to still live in my apartment, but I know that this feels distinctly different than this kind of extractive thing. Um, and I remember explicitly how the conversations would end. Usually, after I would qualify people, they would have this feeling of like a little bit of resistance, and they at the ends of the calls they would have to say, no, but really, like, when are you going to charge me, or like what's in this for you? And I would always say, nothing isn't apart from making you happy. If you feel obligated, pay it forward, find someone that's really in need that you feel inspired to give to. And for this guy, what I was saying, that he like he like wouldn't take that as an answer. He was like, no, I got it. He's like, but I'm gonna help you. And I was just like, interesting. I'm only focusing on him, but he is now like inspired and thrilled to find ways that he can help me. And I think that more people, that I feel like I can find other avenues to this type of dynamic.
Yeah, that you mentioned flow, and I feel the same with kind of offering in this way as well. There's lots of people that can't give anything and they live far away, so there's nothing, there's not that much that they could be offering in terms of something with me locally. But that sense of I'm giving in ways that move me in the direction of what I think is important in the world and like my vision of the world, like I feel the energy going in that way. And so it
Yeah,
feels very easy to give. And with some people, it leads to one thing, after another, which leads to some kind of like an organization that wants to pay me to do something and they have a set rate and they don't believe in the gift economy. Even if I say I work on a gift economy basis, they're like, no, we're going to pay you the rate that we pay consultants or whatever. It's like, great. That's way more
exactly.
than I need, but that means it subsidizes my time that I spend doing so much like one-to-one or group coaching without being paid. So, and it's like you say, it just feels like a kind of flow that supports me. It feels good to not have that, I don't know, that anxiety that we might have around, but if I use my time for free, then I could be using that time to be earning money and I need money. It feels like softer and it requires a lot of trust, I would say. And maybe for so many people raised in capitalist system, trust is pretty scarce in itself.
Absolutely. And I want to just speak to the biggest challenge of that, which is with that comes very little predictability. So to flash forward to why I stopped living on the gift economy, I had actually been supported very comfortably during my year doing it, but there was no guarantee in terms of would I have enough money for rent next month? Because I never knew when someone would make a donation or something would come my way. And so what I found was that the fluctuations of am I going to have enough? Oh, now I'm set for 2 months. Okay, now am I going to have enough again? That flow would always somehow even out, but it was very stressful, even as I was trying to like really lean into it, because I couldn't depend on that for, I think I had fully paid for my car, so I didn't have many reoccurring bills. But it's not an easy lifestyle to live because you really have to live in that state of trust. And when you get down to $0 again, which inevitably will happen, that's the kind of true test to say, am I still going to behave following these principles? And time and again, I would be supported, but also I had a partner that it was stressful on her, and there's pros and cons to it. But I felt like for that chapter, paying attention to my own energy flow of I'm giving and I'm feeling really full because I know my contributions are coming from the most pure place, and I'm not doing things out of some type of indentured dynamic. I'm fully aware and choosing for every hour of the day, for every person I speak with, that I'm wanting to engage with this person. And so I felt incredible freedom in that respect. And I was able to meet my needs. And that was the learning that I needed to get. But like if I did it now that I have a child, I think it would be scary. It would be scary even after this experience to live entirely outside of capitalism, given the number of realities that are happening that I have to navigate.
Yeah, and I want to mention my own privileges that allow me to do this. One is my stepfather died in 2018 and left me some money, which means I don't have rent. Um, I have the privilege of being a Colombian citizen because of my father. So I'm living in a place with very low cost of living, especially when my earnings come from the global north. That said, I support a few people here. And so for me, it feels like the generosity that my stepfather showed me, I'm paying back through living in a way that allows me to have the freedom to offer things for free, as well as the privilege of being able to earn money from the global north. Um, it's a redistribution of money from the global north to the global south because I'm spending the money here,
Mm.
and giving it to people. And yeah, so just to say that if I was still living in England where I was for 17 years, it wouldn't work in that way.
Yeah,
The inheritance would be long gone in terms of, you know, I still would have a place to live maybe, but the cost of living and then the stress, and then I wouldn't have had the ability to offer things for free. And like you say, and I have a daughter, all of that, it just wouldn't be possible. So it's it's that privilege um of being able to live here, being able to not have rent. And I do have to live, like how many months do I have before I'm going to run out of money? I do live like that. And I suppose what I have to do is just kind of breathe and trust and think um, something keeps coming up, like the flow keeps going, even if it's kind of in an unpredictable way. And it's not like, it's very rare that I'm okay for a year. Like I'll be
yeah,
okay for a year. Instead, it's more like how many months, or, you know, it's more like a month or two or 6 months. But knowing that, and like, I think that is something that freelance people have to worry about as well. So that is an issue that some people understand, like the gig economy, and that's there. But I think what we're talking about with the gift economy is more of an opening up to giving in a way that in the gig economy, you wouldn't be thinking in that way. You'd just be constantly chasing a, a gig, a small job that, will pay something and keep you going, and you get enough small jobs and it adds up. And instead of thinking of, I'm going to keep offering things while I don't know if I'm going to have enough money.
Yeah. So I think the statistic is in the United States, 60% of the people have under $1,000 in savings. So if you think about the number of people that are hustling all the time, and 60% of them still are in that circumstance. So by hustling all the time, it's you have the results of what you say, where it's kind of like you have blinders on and you're like, I have to make money to make my rent, et cetera, et cetera. And clearly that's not working. That's not that's not a way for a society to be built and run. That's how you keep people trapped. That said, it's the hardest to make a shift to a gift economy state of mind when you feel like you're constantly in scarcity. But that ultimately is the inner work that is being asked. It's really knowing that we are valuable, we have relevancy. And then the question becomes, well, if we shift and we try and, tell ourselves and act as if we have this inner abundance, this inner affluence, how does the rent get met? How does the rent get paid? Um, there are different methods that I learned through trial and error that help that process. Um, but that said, yeah, it's ultimately coming down to a belief in abundance and a belief that there's a flow that will take care of you because you're not putting strings attached. But just to give more insight into at maybe like the 8 month mark within the year exploration that I did. So I wrote a letter that I would send out to people because inevitably they would have the same questions, which is, how are you sustaining? What's in it for you? If I wanted to help you, how could I help you? Why are you doing this? When will it stop? What parameters are there on the gifting, et cetera, et cetera. So I had a 2 page letter or maybe a 3 page letter. And I did make a needs list similar to the offers and needs market. I wouldn't send it to people when they asked, and I would always say first, pay it forward. But if people said no, but like what are your needs? It was a generic list that I would just keep updated. And I don't know who looked at it. I don't know when they would look at it, but I'd have a link. And that was an important part for me of making it more sustainable, is like being upfront and saying, I do have needs. I'm not against receiving, and actually, receiving is almost like the practice that I'm in gifting. I'm the gifting part is for me anyway easier than receiving often. But I wouldn't put any conditions or expectations on it. So yeah, I hear you, especially given this type of 60% of people are in scarcity financially. It's or not are in scarcity or actually don't have a lot of finances. There's many layers for us to reach them and for us to feel comfortable in making these types of changes given that circumstance.
So maybe as we finish up the conversation, you could share some tips on maybe if someone says, well, that's so alien to me, I wouldn't even know where to start. What would you say?
Yeah. So first, you have to get in touch with what you would give away for free because it's so alive inside you. So you have to know, maybe if not why here, you have to just know what's exciting. You have to know, how do you get lit up when you give to someone? What's the types of giving that just naturally is aligned with you as a person? From there, if it's a thing that's you're really passionate about, it's already kind of the answer to all the next steps because you would give it away for free because you're just so excited to give it out. And that type of energy to focus on is incredibly abundance generating. Like I might not get in front of a room and give a speech on many topics, but if I really thought about the things in life that I'm most passionate about, I get more fearless because that's the thing. And then from that, if you really regard that as sacred and important for you to give, the next question is how do others start to enter that sphere? And I really want to like encourage people to be the chooser, be the qualifier, be the one that's asking the questions to say, oh, you said this, but you said this other part that was contradictory. Like, are you serious about this part? Like, how long have you tried this? Do you think you're going to keep on doing it? And it's a noticeable shift. It's almost like you're the one that's inquiring if they are going to be a good fit for the job, although they're reaching out to you for help. Once that type of inner abundance is established and the relationship is established where I feel like I've asked every question I can to get the sense of somebody, um, and you have clear expectations where there's no strings attached, and maybe they're sharing your story, but only to the people that they feel have highest integrity. I think it just starts to work. It's not much more complicated than that. But if you don't do those two steps and don't really embody the abundance and then the qualifier, I can see how things get more and more complex or hard to discern. And so those are kind of like my two principles that I try and lead with.
Yeah, I think even with the offers and needs market, one of the things they say is, what are you passionate about? Right? Because that is where you think, where would you just be so thrilled to get to do that? But not enough people ask me to do that. I wish more people because I just love it. And I suppose many people would think of that in terms of hobbies, maybe, so it could be like I think I said in our um, gathering, I said something about Andor, you know, and the Star Wars series. And I said, yeah, I like talking about that. And so I met with someone from that group where I did a bit of coaching with him. And then he said, let's talk about Andor, you know, an exchange. And it was so fun. It was just so fun. And it's just like we actually don't do everything for exchange. Like when you think about like you say with friends, like you'll just go, yeah, let's talk about this thing, or it's not because you think it's some kind of capitalist exchange and you're only gonna talk about your favorite TV show or film for money. No, you're not gonna need to do that for money. And so it's maybe gently starting from that and then seeing, okay, there's actually other things that I would be willing to do without money because I just love it so much. I feel so passionate about it. And that can end up being things that support people, that help people. And like you say, what you were looking to do is, I've got 2 weeks with my going to have to leave the apartment if I don't have enough rent. I want to be doing something for people with my time. And so it's finding what would we do if money was no issue, what would we love doing anyway?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
That that's it, which often even means that what people think that they would do professionally doesn't fit in that rubric. It's not their joy to give. So it's like if you're going to shift to living on the gift economy, maybe how you become relevant in society is not what you've been doing, which is that's the whole beautiful arc of it, really, is you're helping connect to others, but you're connecting deeper and deeper to yourself at every gifting opportunity because you're always using that highest joy to calibrate to. I love
Yeah,
the Andor.
because yeah,
That's
around here people really want English, but I am not passionate about teaching English. So in an offers and needs market, I will not say, like, so even though we have skills, doesn't mean we're passionate about them, right? And so this is about Yes, maybe if I'm short on money and there's no flow happening, I will have to go teach English here. But that's, like not my passion. So it's a last resort. And so instead, I'm looking for ways to offer what I am passionate about instead. So that does like kind of differentiate between your skills, your knowledge, your experience doesn't necessarily line up with your passion, like we
And
said.
it is beautiful to have a hybrid approach like that, to really be like super flexible and open and welcoming on what's your highest passion, and also grounded with being responsible for, debts and things like that. And I think that that's a kind of a perfect model for the modern age, which is we have so much freedom to work in so many capacities. Lead with where you're most excited, and then, make sure you got enough to eat too. And that means sometimes little sacrifices, but that's also okay because the cup has been filled so much with the right perspective.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's a good way for us to end it. So, would you like to share places where people could find you if they wanted to reach out to you or learn more about you or your work?
For sure. I have my portfolio at iot.info, so AIOTEA.info. And my main project right now is called TrustUp, TRUSTUP.org, which is a need and resource matching tool. And yeah, feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. I'll have to look that up. So, thank you so much, Rob, for taking the time to share this. I hope other people find it inspirational and move in this direction like we've been doing. Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Hey, thank you for listening to another episode of Doozy Cast. If you'd like more from me and Doozy, I have a newsletter at letter.kdoozy.org. There's a WhatsApp channel for tips and info related to EDI, DEI with the decolonial lens, Telegram channel, LinkedIn, YouTube channel, Instagram, X, and Facebook. You can find all of this on my website, kdoozy.org. And looking forward to meeting you in one of those places sometime soon.